You're welcome to First Take on 3FM and TV3. My name is Jifa Bampo. Today we are speaking to the Chief Executive of the Ghana Tourism Authority, Akwesi Ajiman. Thank you very much, Mr. Ajiman, for speaking to us on TV3 and 3FM. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Jifa, for coming.
All right. So on Sunday, when the President addressed the nation, he indicated that the creative arts area, in terms of easing the restrictions, guidelines will have to be set up and engagements done with stakeholders. Tell us, where are we on the President's plan in terms of easing restrictions on cinemas and pubs and the like?
All right, thank you. I think the President's directive was specifically for cinemas and theaters. As we know, since COVID struck, since March 2020, various players in the industry have gone through one form of restriction or the other. As and when the situation demands, restrictions are either eased or tightened. And so we had issues where at some point we had events opened and then it had to be tightened up again as the cases went up. But the cinemas have been closed since March 2020. And there has been a clamor for easing the restrictions within that subsector. We've been engaging with the Ghana Health Service, the Presidential Task Force on COVID, and cinema operators, and generally the value chain of film. We all know that, as the President said, we'll protect lives first before livelihoods. And so given the risk involved in cinema operation, I mean, movie houses, you go in there, people have to take off their mask and drink Coca-Cola or any...
Or they're sitting very close to each other.
Taking popcorn and all that. So it was a risk area. The issue of ventilation, because of the sound effect and all that, most cinema houses don't even have any windows at all.
They are enclosed.
And so that also provided a risk factor. So we've been knocking on the doors, working with the operators in and out. Almost every week we have meetings to see what sort of protocols can be put in place so that restrictions can be eased, so people can at least get their livelihoods back on track. And so that sort of engagement has been ongoing together with the two key players, Dr. Nsiansari and Dr. Samuaba of the Presidential Task Force team. They've been leading that discussions. We've met with operators. We've worked with them on some set of guidelines that we believe if we can all follow through, then it's probably will be time to have some of the restrictions eased. Like I indicated, there are risk factors. I mean, if you take a place like the normal market, it's ventilated. And so in as much as it may be crowded, because of the way it is, and looking at the incident rates that we've had in the country, is normally not come from people out and about. It's more to do with people grouping together in a public gathering, especially in an enclosed area. And so we have had series of engagements, and I think the President has given directives for us to try and bring the engagements to an end and put in place the guidelines that will enable the sector to be opened up. And so that is where we are.
So how long will it take to get the guidelines in place?
As a matter of fact, we work on a set of guidelines, but there are other stakeholders in the game that we need to engage. It's not just the cinema operators. You have the Ghana Medical Association, you have other players. Everybody is a key stakeholder. The enforcement agencies, because once
the security
agencies there. So you can put in place the guidelines. How do we enforce them? How do we police them? And so then you have to engage with the security agencies to ensure that they also understand, so that they don't go to a cinema operation and say, why are you doing this? So they are also educated on the guidelines. So as of last week, I think Thursday, we had a meeting with the operators. They came, we engaged. They even came out with certain protocol that they felt ought to be added. We've also gone around to some of the establishments to see what they have on ground. I mean, in terms of, for example, if you ask if each cinema to provide a sanitation station, are they ready? I mean, what is the state of readiness of the operators to abide by those protocols. So all these things are in place, and I'm hopeful that by the end of the week, we should be able to come up with a clear path or the different milestones that they have to meet to operate. But we want to thank the president at least for granting us this concession at this point in time, because these operators, it's not just the cinema houses, the entire value chain. So you have those who are producing films, the actors, the actresses, the script writers, the light men, the people who have been providing food on sets for
and those who come to the cinema, those who operate the cinemas, those who sell,
who buy everybody popcorn, and it's a massive industry, and so we are grateful for the concessions that have been granted. But I believe that as we have engaged with the operators, we can all work within the protocols that are coming to ensure that a time will come when we will have to go back and close it up again.
How many cinemas and theaters are we talking about?
Okay, we have, I think, 5 major cinema houses, but then there are a lot of theaters and event centers that in a way also serve as cinema houses for people who are premiering their movies. So you have issues of people coming up with a movie and deciding to, let's say, premiere across the country. If you go to Tamale, for example, there is no fixed cinema house, but they will go to, let's say, UDS and rent out their auditorium to screen a movie. And so all these areas are being looked at. What sort of protocols do we have to put in place so that if somebody goes to the University of Ghana and says, I want to rent out the Great Hall to show a movie, it's not a cinema house. But then at that point, they will be acting as one. How do we ensure that they also abide by the protocols that have been put in place? So yes, we have 5 key ones, one in Kumasi, the Kumasi Mall, and 4 in Accra. But I believe we will be engaging also with all the other theaters and other event centers that sometimes allow premieres to happen in their premises.
How much money has been lost to cinemas and theaters? Can the authority put an amount on it?
I wouldn't be able to. I mean, but what we know that, like I indicated, they have been non-operational since March 2020, and so jobs have been lost. The data that we have is not exhaustive enough, because for a very long time these cinemas were not areas that yes, we regulate them, but there were no issues. So I think COVID has taught us that there are certain things that probably ought to be looked at in terms of expansion of the mandate of the authority itself. And
so that you can at least know how much they are bringing in, how much.
So for example, if you ask me same thing for the hotels, and because we have the manpower data, we have so much data on them, but we didn't seem to have that sort of data on the cinema operators and also the various centers that, but like we all know, COVID has been wreaking havoc on everybody. I mean, every business has suffered, and I know they have also suffered.
In talk about businesses suffering in the creative arts industry, for instance, I was reading a UN report which said it may take Ghana another year almost for the industry to recover. Government has announced tax reliefs on corporate income tax to a level of 30%, a waiver on penalties and interest on accumulated tax. I have heard colleagues in the creative arts industry saying this is not enough, that to start with, you need to work to generate the income to benefit from this 30% waiver. Then there were monies that were allocated to be distributed. Some of them have said they didn't get anything. What is your authority doing to provide support to the teeming numbers of creative arts industry people?
All right, I will say, Jifa, that 1 year is probably a bit optimistic in my view. I mean, given what we know, and given that we don't even know when this is going to end. So it's not like we are out of the woods yet. You know the story of India with the new strain that has come up, and then the waves that are happening all over. We are also a bit optimistic because at least the vaccinations have started, and we've seen a gradual reduction in incident rates. So we are cautiously optimistic. And so if we were to be able to bring back the industry to pre-COVID era in a year, then I would say thank you, Jesus. But if you look at the scenarios we are dealing with, it doesn't look like we will get there within a year. I mean, being quite frank with what we are seeing.
What kind of time frame do you think may be realistic so that operators in the sector also can pace themselves?
I think, for example, let me just put some scenarios together for you. For example, if you look at our international arrivals, we moved from about 1.13 million in 2019 to 355,000 in 2020. So that is like a 68% drop. Now, the question is, okay, if COVID disappears today, do you get back to 1.1? The answer is no. Why? Because a lot of the connectivity instruments, the flights and all those things, are no longer coming in. I mean, for example, South African Airways, which was a big carrier for us out of the United States and from Southern Africa, is not flying the route anymore. So that takes away a chunk. The bigger airlines that were doing daily flights have reduced to 3 times a week, 5 at the most. And so all of a sudden, how do people even get to the country? Access is not there, connectivity is not there. And so to get to that level again, there are so many interplays that are not within our means now. I mean, we don't have control. So unless, for example, KLM decides that, okay, I'm reverting back to my daily flight, Air France is doing that, South African Airways is back, British Airways is doing that, more airlines are coming in. We've seen Qatar Airways come in. There's good news. Last week, United started on the DC routes, which is good news. But then, like I'm saying, you need connectivity, you need access.
And we need the land borders to open as well, so that our West African borders can be.
So all these things have to be in place. And I don't think, realistically, these airlines are going to be reverting to
the way things were 2 years ago.
Yeah, within 6 months. Okay. And so I will probably say within 2 years, we will probably be in a better shape than we are now, but probably not even to pre-COVID eras. And that is why, for us, domestic and sub-regional tourism has become a key strategy for us going forward. I mean, we realized that even when we were doing the year of return, Nigeria was still number 2 in terms of arrivals for us. Nigeria is a big market, big population, and they love Ghana. And so if you look at the fact that you have people like Davido, Wizkid, and Benab, they almost always here, some have homes here. That really is a platform that we can build on.
So domestic tourism, not just for those of us in country, but from our West African citizens, is the new frontier?
Domestic and sub-regional.
Okay.
So for domestic, for us living here, and then sub-regional. For example, domestic, we have a basket of tourist sites that we monitor. In 2019, there too, we did about 669,000, arrivals to the various tourist sites. So you talk about Kakum, you talk about Shai, you talk about Mole, you talk about Lake Posomtre, you have Kintampo. We put all of them in a basket. So we monitor year on.
And 669,000 people visited as of 2019.
Yes. And out of this, about 70 or so % were locals. So it tells you that Ghanaians were.
Do you know what the year-on visits numbers look like for last year and this year?
Yeah, last year we dropped to below 300,000. So about 240 something. So that's a huge drop. So now to get it back to 600,000, we've looked at it. Okay, what are the opportunities there? One opportunity is that we realized that a lot of people who were also traveling out cannot travel. So a lot of Ghanaians who used to go for vacations in Dubai, in South Africa and the rest, they may not also be able to go. So then there's an opportunity for us to market to them. Now, people have complained about pricing, that some of our hotels are too expensive, and for $1,000, somebody might get a full treat in Dubai, versus if you took that $1,000 to, let's say, Kumasi, probably 3 nights is finished. So what we have done is to engage the industry players, the Ghana Hotels Association, the Progressive Hotels Association, the Tour Operators Association, and the rest of them under the Ghana Tourism Federation. And they've all agreed that they are going to offer discounts so that they can put together wholesale packages. So if you wanted to do a 5-night stay, for example, in Cape Coast, Takoradi, it now becomes affordable to most people, and also they have added on packages that make it more attractive for you to want to travel to these destinations. So our target is within the next 18 months, try to bring it back to the 669, and then by 2024 move to 1 million. So that's the target we've set for ourselves. The idea is to get back to the 600,000 for the year 2022, and then also for sub-regional, go back to around 250,000. And so we are looking at a strategy for not just Nigeria, our Francophone brothers and sisters. How do we bring them in? I mean, if you look at, for example, the Volta region, we have an opportunity to bring in a lot of visitors from Togo. If you go to the Western region, Maha and the rest, you have people. I mean, normally we see a trend of people coming in from Cote d'Ivoire to some of the tourist sites we have in Nzulezu and in that area, and we want to be aggressive about it. And so these are things that we are doing to really bring the industry back on its feet. And then so when it comes to issues of tax rebates, issues of support and stimulus, we're quite excited. I mean, in the next few weeks as well, there will be another wave of COVID relief by under the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture. The Ghana Tourism Development Project will be announcing a new wave of COVID stimulus to support the SMEs within the sector. That will be in addition to what the NBSSI will be doing, and we know that the first wave, when NBSSI opened up, a lot of people within the industry did get some support, but like Oliver Twist, we want more because not everybody got it. And so we've gotten the feedback that people applied, didn't get it, and they are all in the queue. And so we've been talking to MBSSI, and thankfully the new wave that is coming will probably reach everybody. So
this additional COVID stimulus you're working with MBSSI on, is there a time frame for start or rollout? Oh, I believe within 2 weeks. Actually, the initial timeline was somewhere this week, but I believe there are some preparatory works that are being done. MBSSI, this is under the Ghana Tourism Development Project, but MBSSI is the implementing partner, so they will review the applications because they already have the systems in place. They did a COVID stimulus for government, so you have the infrastructure that will be able to support the applications, the review, and then, but this is specific to players within the tourism and hospitality value chain. How much are we projecting in terms of disbursement or the support? I believe we're looking at about $5 million for that, so that's about close to 30 million cities. In the earlier 600 million that was put out by MBSSI, that was for every SME. But even then, we were able to reach some compromise with them that they take a look at the associations within the industry. So we had grouped associations, let's say Choba Operators Association. So this is specifically for? This is specific for
tourism.
Tourism,
Yes.
good. All right. And hopefully by June, this will be rolled out because
yes,
we are
yes.
in the middle of May already. All right. Now, you talked about the numbers of travel dropping from 1.13 million air travel to some 355,000. The year of return in 2019 was such a blast. And many were looking forward to the next campaign, which is Beyond Return. Obviously, we've not been able to do much in regard to that. Is that still on the cards, looking at the picture you paint about the challenges we have about reviving the industry, the concerns about the third wave, the impact on international travel?
I think as Providence will have it, Beyond the Return is a 10-year project, 2020-2030. And so clearly, I think we needed time, honestly, because when we were setting out on the year of return, we hadn't planned a 10-year project. We saw the opportunity of 400 years after the first enslaved African arriving in the U.S. as an opportunity to position Ghana as a Pan-African hub that we really are, given the history of Osagefo through the ages, Pan Affairs by Rollins to the Joseph Project by Jake and everything that was going on. And so we were more like taking advantage of a situation. Then we started with the year of return. So when we were going through the motions of the year of return, we hadn't planned the 10-year outreach. We started somewhere in the middle of 2019 looking at, okay, how do we sustain this? How do we build on this for the future? And that's where the Beyond the Return came. And so in as much as we had started, we knew it was going to be a slow start because we had 7 pillars that we had to deal with. And there are certain things that the diaspora, African diaspora, were asking of us. People were saying, look, you say we should come, but it's so difficult coming to your country. We have to go through an elaborate visa process. We have to queue up at the embassy. We have to mail our passports. And so the issue of a diaspora pathway to Ghana became a pillar. How do we ease restriction, visa acquisition for our brothers and sisters who want to come back? And it was more like chewing gum and running at the same time. So we're implementing, but at the same time, planning at the same time. And so COVID, as unfortunate as it is, gave us opportunity to now slow down and say, look, how do we put these pillars on a stronger foundation so that it can last the 10 years? And so, yes, people may not have seen a lot of activity, but yes, we have put in place the pillars and the foundation that will make the 10-year project very successful. So if you talk about the pillars, you have like the Invest in Ghana pillar, for example. What were people coming to invest in? We have laws that needed to be looked at. So we gave us an opportunity to sit with GIPC, the Minister of Finance himself, announce the Sankofa investment product that's now being rolled out.
It's an effort to try and consolidate and coordinate
and make sure
and
that
harmonize all the activities
so
that relate to all of this.
Yes, so Beyond the Return, I would say, is still there. The part of the returns that people see is when the Experience Ghana pillar, which talks about events. So last year, even during COVID, when the restrictions were eased a bit, you saw what happened in December. A lot of people came to Ghana. There were a few parties that unfortunately
then we saw a COVID spike the following year.
Yeah. So I think we are
mindful about how you implement the
next opening, but I believe it's still in process.
In the recent budget, the finance minister indicated that the Ajay Anama paragliding had been seen a facelift. There's the construction of the Tafe Atome Monkey Sanctuary. I would like to go to the National Museum, which is located near the Workers' College, but it's been closed.
Yeah.
Why? And it seems to have taken so long. The same with the Science Museum, it's not been completed.
All right, so it's been closed for some time. I think it's out on contract. I believe there have been some delays on the part of the contractor. My understanding was that there were the scope got...
there was scope creep.
So I think
there was scope creep in the work, so there was some delay. All right.
But I believe we are very close to it being completed. That is under the Ghana Museums and Monuments Board, a sister agency under the ministry. We've been engaging with them, and we are hopeful that by the end of this year, that place will be open and more facilities. It's the same with the Science Museum, but I believe there are other museums that are opening. The whole museum, for example, has been renovated within the last few years. That is going to be opened, I think, next week. Cape Coast is there, Elmina is there, there's Fort St. Antonio in Azim is also there. There are a few that you can travel to. So, yes, the National Gallery is a big asset for the ministry. I believe that it complements what we have at the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park. The Osu Castle also was handed over by the president to the Ghana Museums and Monuments Board to also start operating it as a facility for tourists. And so what we are looking to do is to work with these other agencies to ensure that all these products are ready. In the Experience Ghana, Share Ghana project that we are about to embark on, we'll have a focus on city tours. I mean, for Accra, people come for conferences, and there's no avenue for you to do a proper city tour.
Like you sit in the London Red Bus tour.
Yeah. So you see a bus coming up very soon where people can hop in and do a tour. We have some bone shakers that will also complement, so people want to reminiscent and go back to the good old days of our bone shaker days. You can hop into a bone shaker and then do a city tour. So all these things are being put in place, coming up to ensure that people can really enjoy tourism in Ghana.
And I know that we have these forests and parks. So, for instance, I know the Dija, park and the Dija National Park. I've been there myself quite some years back. But there's also the Tiwa Forest. Is there any plan to convert these into tourist attractions, for instance?
All right. So these are already tourist attractions. For example, and the reserves. So you start from Ankasa, you go through Shai, Mole, and the rest are under the Forestry Commission. They've given out a lot of concessions to private sector operators to complement the attractions that we have. So if you go to, for example, Mole, now you have the Zena Lodge, which is one of the nicest and coolest places to be in Ghana, and then so you can go there, have a good treats for yourself and your family, and then explore the elephants, the other animals in the park. And same thing is happening in Shai, where now some tents have started coming up. And so the whole idea for these national forest parks is to start bringing in some development to complement the natural things that they have there. We are on a wave of collaboration with other agencies under the ministry and also partner agencies like the Forestry Commission and other key players that are willing to invest.
Not to take you back, but you talked about the next wave of COVID support that's coming through MBSSI. I need to ask, how can colleagues in the creative art industry, specifically for tourism, apply for this?
All right, so that's why I talked about the infrastructure in place. So MBSSI, which is now I think GEA, has a platform which they use for their COVID relief and COVID support programs. But we've asked them to design one specifically for this one so that people don't get confused. So that is the reason why there's been a delay. So that infrastructure is going to be put in place, and once it's done, we are going to make that big announcement that people can apply. The modalities have been made much, much easier.
So any final words, sir?
I will say to our operators, I know we've gone through rough times together. It's been a tough period for all of us. But like our president always says, let's protect lives before we look at the livelihoods. Now, with vaccinations going on, we are quite hopeful and cautiously optimistic that we will be out of the woods very soon. Let's all put in our efforts to make sure that we can make Ghana tourism Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jiman, and much appreciated for speaking to us on First Take.
Thank you, Jifa.
And you've been watching First Take on 3FM and TV3. My name is Jifa Bampo. We've been speaking with the Chief Executive of the Ghana Tourism Authority, Akwesi Agyemang.